Hi everybody, Mature Simmer here. So jumping back in, I'm going to go ahead. I've got a few things I need to get done. I've just recently finished planting the field, and the other work needs to happen. So I have a little bit of time. I'm at least going to get started on it. My intent is to certainly finish it if I can. I just don't know that I can. The first thing I'm going to do is get the cheese done. So haven't really been sharing a lot of this before. In fact, I think I've moved cheese several times without doing anything other than letting you know that it got moved. But this is kind of just a farm work day episode, I believe, is really kind of what I'm planning. Whoops, I must be catching the corner of the lip of the trailer. Well, that didn't help. I know what I want to do, but it's not rotating and doing that. So, I've come up with a process that I've used pretty successfully. Of course, you know, now that you're watching me, I'm gonna embarrass myself and it's gonna be a disaster. But it's kind of been put the things up on that side, on the far side first, then fill in the 3 at the bottom, because basically my entire capacity of the dairy is 11,000 liters of cheese. So every time I fill up, like, that's what I've got. So if I do 6 on one layer and then 5 on the top layer, I've got enough. Like, that gives me the full cart. I'm gonna have to move a tractor over here. If I'm careful and I'm not banging around the trailer too much, I can fill at least the first level of the trailer without worrying about anything. But if it starts to go a little sideways on me, I may divert over and go grab the tractor and connect it up, because then why is it not going down? Interesting. So this is not helpful. Well, now I just, like, yeah, the whole thing is, the down key is not working. Like, that is the front and back. Now it's finally going. Wow. Well, that just botched everything up, so let me reorient. So I don't know if it was lag or what. I wasn't really paying attention there. But obviously now I'm a little crooked, so this makes it just a little more challenging. Now let me raise it, and hopefully it won't give me any difficulty lowering it. Go up a little bit more, because I'm okay pushing it from the other side if I have to. But this is kind of one of those things, you know, in FSN, we're not allowed to kind of use any things that, you know, it's not enforced full crazy realism. That's what they have enhanced realism servers for. But that's also, frankly, why I'm like, I've got enough realism here already. I mean, I get folks might really want to go nuts, but I'm not one of them. Because to me, there's enough headaches on these servers the way they are. The enhanced realism is just not for me, because for me, this is tedious to do the forklift. It's just hard to work with. You know, I've operated forklifts in real life. They're not as finicky as the things in the game are. You know, so I just don't understand the mechanics of this, and part of it is, you know, it's farming simulator, it's not manufacturing simulator, which is where I've done the forklift work I've done. You know, you can move things very, very easily and a lot smoother, and certainly the forks, see, like, now I can't go up. Oh my god. Like, yeah, now it's not raising the forks. Now it's just going down. This is really oh, and now it's not stopping. Even better. So I had my key off the raise for quite some time, and it just kept going up. So I guess I need to pay attention. I mean, every time I look down, I'm at 25, 27 milliseconds. It's in the white. It's not even getting in the yellow. I don't understand what's happening. But as you can tell, I get kind of frustrated with the mechanics of this stuff in Farming Simulator. So, and it's almost to the point where I'm like, I just maybe don't want to do this work. When I play single player, I'll use super strength and I'll carry pallets and I'll put them on, because I understand the dynamics of what I could do. I could load things with the forks and so forth, but if I'm not playing for wanting to do realism, I take some of those shortcuts. And in some cases I would argue, like, with bees especially, because that's the one I had in this series early on in Shellbrook. Like, I tried bees for the first time, and they produce a good amount of honey, but the pallets, I mean, it's a few jars of honey. I don't know that they really wouldn't be movable by hand, and they require you to use a forklift, because I think they're like, I don't know, I guess they're 70 kilograms or something, it says. So I suppose that would be a bit of a stretch, because that would be 140 pounds or something, but I don't know. Either way, it was too many pallets, and so that's why I own this forklift, is I bought it for that. And when I moved here, I'm like, well, what can I do? And I'm like, well, I can do a dairy. I mean, anything I do, you have to load up. But loading things is not what I enjoy the most, certainly. Because to me, I mean, yes, it's part of the farming experience to some degree, but you can see it's just a bit of a challenge, a little bit of a Tetris puzzle sometimes. So there we go. So we got 6. It's not going to now spawn another one, but like now I need to move out of the way. So I'm going to actually probably get myself under a pallet, because now that I hit the trailer to connect the tractor up, I've got to go in that space that I was in. But at this point, now we're kind of where it's not going to spawn anymore. Alright, so this is the tractor I use. There's nothing in here, right? Yeah, it's empty. Okay. So I'm like, before I disconnect it, let me make sure that I don't have anything to dump into the silage, but I don't. But I just figured, because I just need the forage wagon to pick up the grass field, so that's why it's like, well, I'll just leave it over there. And that's why once I have a yard up there and, that little tree enclosure, like, I'd probably be a little bit neater with parking things, but right now I just feel like I'm leaving stuff laying around on the field anyway. I'm like losing my mind. I'm like, where am I going? That's right. Going here. Welcome to the mature simmer. A little bit of confusion every once in a while, because I'm talking and thinking about something else, and then I forget what I was in the middle of doing. Alright, so now I need that so that I can just... Oh, I guess I was stopped. Okay. I forget the forklift is pretty loud. Alright, so I'm going to do the same thing. I kind of go over here and then put things on top. Because otherwise, basically, down the hill, you can shove things off. So what I try to do is now put this other layer of 5 up here. And again, because I only need 5, I've got a little bit of room to play with that I don't have to be perfect. Because if I had to stack 6, like, that just gets really, really hard with the dynamics of Farming Simulator. Like, see, I can't back up because you can't really fine-tune your forks as easily. And obviously when the keys are getting stuck or whatever the heck is happening, it's even worse. But that's why I then load pallets by hand, because it's like, you know, it still takes a little bit of time, but it's just not as frustrating. But I understand, you know, we're in FSN because we've agreed to these things, and it's fine because it gets me that little bit where, you know, maybe if I didn't have the FSN experience, I would do this once in a while in my single player. But for me, I get my fill of this just with a little bit here, because as you can see, it's a little more than a little bit. You know, it's whoop, whoop, whoop. I don't want to go back yet. I want to lower this down. And I guess we'll go this way. Just trying to figure out which pallet I want to grab to put over here, because then the others you just kind of spin around and put them on that side. But this way, like, I can push uphill and I have a little bit of the gravity resistance to avoid toppling it off the other side. Where what I found before is I think I started filling the other way because I'm like, well, I'm close, and then I'll do the far ones later, and then I'd end up shoving things back off on the other side because I'd bump them and gravity would take over and the momentum would just go, and suddenly I'd be reloading things. But yeah, and now see, like, I'm stuck. I'm pulling the whole trailer. It just doesn't make sense. Like, I really didn't move the forks that much for the little bit where the change in dynamics is so substantial and it's so overstated that I think it's not modeled really terribly well. So I don't think loading docks and things like that in Farming Simulator are done well. But that's not the point of the game, so I get a little bit of that. I mean, I'm sure they tried, and they're not terrible. Obviously, I can get things done, but once again, it's probably 15 or 20 minutes that we've been doing this, and, you know, it's not for nothing. I mean, we're going to get... Oh, that's going to be too much again. Still not enough. And this is always the danger. Well, that'll be alright. And that's kind of the benefit of just needing the 5. Like, if I needed 6, I would need to fix that because I couldn't stack the other one, but now I can just put the other one on the back end, strap it down, go take it to the lovely location of the Circle C Saloon, and give them, I don't know, 6 months worth of cheese. Because that's about how often. Like, I usually do about 2 loads. I think the last load I did was, I don't know, maybe it was 9 months ago. It's been a while, but the 1 year I did like 2. That's how I figured out. Because that was the one thing I was looking at, is I have to pay $5,000. Ah. Oh, this is terrible now, because now what happens? Alright, well, let me figure this out. I've not had this happen. No, it's too... Now will it let me pick it up? Yes. Alright. I think I'm going to have to turn it over myself, because otherwise it's like if I take it this way, it's not going to actually sell when I get there. Like, you can't sell an upside down pallet. And I'm not going to really have anything to turn it over other than the, oops, shoot. I didn't want to change the angle. I'm just worried it's just going to slide. Oh, alright, cool. Now back up. No, don't pull it back. Alright, thank you. So I will say I'm glad they have a little bit of that dynamic. That makes sense to be overstated. Like, when something's not right side up, it kind of has extra gravity to fix itself, which I'm okay with, because otherwise I'd have to pull it over again. Now, the thing I don't understand, I apologize for the sound now that the camera's jumped closer, but I'm going to have to get closer here. Like, I don't understand why it tipped off. And maybe, there we go. Because if I can shove it a little bit, see, but now I'm like holding it even though I'm really not. So I get there was a bit of pressure, but it shouldn't like be so snug that it does that. But anyway, it does. Alright, so we'll unstrap, strap, 11,000. Now we're good. Now let's go sell it. And yeah, if I recall, I think, yes, it was 8:08 when I started. It's now 8:24, so yes, it was darn near 15 minutes, 13 minutes, just to load one trailer. And it's just, you know, a bit of a challenge here. So I'll see you over at the saloon. Coming up on the saloon here, so we'll circle around and we'll sell this, but you know, what I was talking about there is, whoa, the you know, the amount we get covers the 5,000 per year. I just need to remember to sell things at least once a year. So it's also interesting because this trailer like doesn't seem to, it's pretty rare. There we go, exactly what I was gonna say. It like doesn't fully sell. It like ends up in a weird location. So now this is as bad as I've ever had it be. So I'm gonna have to circle around to sell the rest of this, and somehow there's enough weight that this trailer is still flying over when I turn. I'm not going that fast. So like I said, sometimes the mechanics and the physics of Farming Simulator are frustrating, intriguing, challenging, pick your adjective. They're not normal, is I think something most people can agree on. You know, I get what they're trying to do and whatever, and I'm sure, you know, I don't know if this is a trailer's a mod, the tractor's a mod. It's always hard to keep track of what's base game and what's not, but I don't know that it even matters, because I think sometimes the things Giants build, it's not like they're perfect. So, but yeah, you know, we had 13,000 just with the little bit that sold, but you know, we ended up basically, what, 20, because I think it was like 27.57, so we ended up with a little bit over $20,000 of cheese there. So that's good. This is probably a better time of year to sell than it is. It's probably up near the peak. But, you know, even if I just get that one load over, paying $5,000 to keep the dairy up, and I think as long as I don't miss the renewal date, it's $4,500. You know, I'm making a profit, and that's always what I got to keep an eye out on, is I don't want to be slowly bleeding money and kind of the death by 1,000 cuts thing that is the cliche of how businesses fail and do things, because you just don't pay attention that, hey, you know, it's costing me $100 every month for this thing that I'm supposed to be making money on, but, you know, by the time I do the paperwork and do all the other stuff, you know, what I pay in labor and this and that, like, I lose money. You know, I just gotta avoid things like that as much as possible. I'm gonna do the same thing I did before, which was move this a little bit further away from the field, because otherwise when I'm mowing and doing other things, I've tended to have a few accidents here and there. So I think if I kind of put it over here, that'll work. I'll disconnect myself again. The dairy is loud. Whoops. Let's see. Did I disconnect? No, of course not. I'm hitting things too quickly. Getting in, getting out, they're all keys, and I thought I had hit something, and then I'm like, did I? And obviously I didn't. Alright. So that's job number 1. The other jobs involve things here. So I'm gonna, at this point, I guess, go ahead and reconnect to this. I do try to stay disconnected when I'm done so that I can jump in the truck and pull away if I need to. But I'm going to move at least 1 tank of milk. So I'm going to take a peek here. Alright, 727. It's kind of right up there. I can get a little bit more, but this is a pretty good time to sell. So I can... Bubba's Market is where I go. So I am going to take several tractor trailers full of milk. Back off a bit. I'm like, I seemed a little close, and I was. But we'll do this. Maybe we'll get ourselves, we should get ourselves, I think, well over 2.8 million. Because I want to say, I think I get like over $30,000 for each load. And at this point, I could probably do, like, empty this thing out. Get really close to it, because the dairy gets some milk from what I'm pouring in there, but, you know, obviously the cows, as long as everything is working, the cows produce faster than the dairy consumes. That was one of the things I learned when I put the dairy in, because initially I was like, well, I can just chew through milk with the dairy and turn it into more profitable stuff. And it doesn't produce that fast, so that's problem number 1. And problem number 2, frankly, would have been, if it was producing that fast, to then get the benefit from it and not just be full all the time, and then it's not producing. I'd have to do what I just did that I said I didn't incredibly enjoy. You know, but even just delivering that down here, you know, it's 8:34 already. I spent another 10 minutes with the delivery. So, you know, it's, in essence, for all intents and purposes, a half-hour operation to sell a tractor or a trailer of cheese. And again, it's not I barely turn the wheel, I promise you. Again, farming simulator physics. I can't even get moving. I don't know why, but something in this field is obviously super challenging, and that's the problem. Like, you get off the road, there's not really a tractor trailer that's great at this, and so you end up having no traction. Like, I barely slipped off the road, and suddenly I'm doing what I did. All kinds of fun. All kinds of fun. But yeah, but the dairy doesn't produce that fast, and yeah, I probably wouldn't be able to sell that fast, because let's say it was producing enough cheese every 2 days, every 2 months, and I'd have to be in there and move it, and it was just sucking up the milk, and, you know, it was just working great. That could be a bit of a challenge too, so. But I think it produces enough milk that I'm tempted to sell 400,000 liters of milk here and get whatever cash I can off of that, because this is honestly one of my, like, I make more money with the milk when I do sell it than I think I do with the crop. The thing I suppose I have not modeled out is how much milk am I really generating in a year. I don't know if again, this milk, I'd have to go back and see the last time I sold milk, because I know I took it down to like 250,000, so that means we've done a little bit over 150,000 liters of milk since that time. You know, but I think filling up the barn is a multi-year endeavor to get to this 450,000 cap that I have. And so, obviously, while I'm getting, say, $240,000 of milk that I potentially have here, if I'm going to get $30,000 each time I didn't pay attention to what I got, we'll look with the next load that I bring what I'm at. But, you know, if I'm doing that, and I'm only doing like 80 or 90,000 in profit on a crop, you know, the thing is that's like 3 years of crop in a full barn of milk, and if I can do that in less than 3 years, then milk is more profitable, is my point. So that may be an experiment to look at in the future, because again, it shouldn't be that hard to figure out, you know, what milk is, and then when the hour rolls over and they get fed, how much additional milk I get an hour. Because I think it's got to be more than 1,000 liters of milk, but it may not be. I don't know. Because if it's 1,000 liters, that means it takes 450 hours to fill, and I don't think it takes that long. Because I'm trying to think, like 240 hours would be, what, 10 days? So that would almost be 20 days. Well, I mean, that's less than 2 in-game years, so maybe. Why is it not filling? I guess I'm just not quite up there. So, you know, I've got a pretty solid operation running. You know, we just kind of keep circling the drain on the same point. I'm stuck not being able to build my yard. I need that yard to kind of feel finished, and then I could feel like I could really establish, you know, maybe what it looks like. I could almost lay out a yearly schedule for my farm, like most farmers would do. Like March, April is planting, you know, April, May, June is spraying for weeds. Every 2 days I'm topping off the cows. Every 6 days I'm selling milk. You know, it's that kind of stuff. And then I could work toward maybe setting up the operations and the storage of things to work a little cleaner and go from there. Like right now, and I don't know that it would be any different than it is. So I'm not implying that, like, this farm is going to change substantially once I get a yard as far as how I organize things. It may not be. It may still be get in, figure out what I can do today and do it. And there's no more planning than that, per se, other than, again, when I know I'm heading out of town, or I know I'm going to be away, or, you know, need a break. Sometimes I've had that happen, where I just need kind of a mental break from the game and say, I'm going to take a year off on the farm. I'm not going to do anything. You know, and I can do that to some degree. I'm just trying desperately not to fly off the road again. But it just doesn't feel complete right now, because I have things that I'm considering unfinished because I don't have the farm I want. Meaning I don't have a silo. I don't have any storage for equipment. You know, and then start to make other determinations like I did. You know, there were sheds I had that I put in Shellbrook that, you know, in hindsight, I'm like, maybe I didn't need that one. I was fine with just the big item, but you know, then I'm focusing more on what you would normally do with the farm, is just, I'd like this instead, just like, you know, the repair location or whatever. Like, I don't think I would have put the repair location where I did if I had the yard. It probably would be in the yard, because typically what I've always tried to do is kind of put it in some sort of an area that I drove through all the time to go store my equipment, and then it just became part of the cycle of drive into the repair location, repair, and then just drive the equipment to storage. So there we go, 36, yeah, we're getting 37,000. So, you know, we're going to get close to 300,000 off of 400,000 liters of milk, which is easily 3 years of crop sales. So, yeah, so it's probably worthwhile to just take a look and see what it all looks like, because in the end, if I need to make a decision at some point, like, I didn't have cows for decades on either of my farms. I didn't have any animals. And then basically in Shellbrook, that was kind of the decision I made in Shellbrook, was, aside from just doing the farming, which is all I was doing on Seneca, I'm now going to introduce some animals. And, you know, again, played around with bees, decided, the way we got to play them here, I don't like bees, I don't like all the forklift work, because at that point, like, I was taking, you know, three levels of pallets because they were producing so much honey. But it was like an hour to load the trailer because it was just like a Jenga puzzle. I was worried I was going to flip over. Oof. So again, obviously I can't move the wheel too much or I immediately jackknife because it just overreacts. But, you know, if you think through that, like everything we've been doing, I guess it's not terribly long. It's about 10 minutes because it was like 8:34 when I commented last. We only run 2 loads of milk over in the time since I've swapped over to milk. So this takes a bit of effort, that is for sure. And now we're going to be kind of at the point where we're going to be impacting the dairy again. It's not going, no, it is already going down, even though I'm at 290. So this is what I mean. And what I may do, because it's not the end of the world, like if I have to run some stuff over to the dairy, but what I may do is empty, just keep going, and if the dairy gets empty, the dairy gets empty, and then start to see, because, you know, the best thing would be that if the dairy is really feeding off of that storage location, then it should do so. And maybe it is, because at the end of the day, I mean, the barn has some capacity, but I don't think the barn has as much capacity. I think the barn has more capacity than the gap that existed, because I think it was only like, it was less than 100,000 liters between having a full barn and what I had, and I think the barn itself took like 250,000, 300,000 liters, so I don't remember. I suppose, again, maybe when we're selling, we can take a look at that silo, the milk silo, and see if it gives us a capacity. I don't know that it does, that I can see easily. You know, but at this point, for 8 of these, you know, if it took 10 minutes for 100, it's going to take 40 minutes just to move the milk. So we're going to be here for a while moving milk. You know, I'll probably babble on while I do that, because I don't have much else to do while I'm just driving back and forth here. And once again, for those who want to hang, you can listen, and you can mull along in the background. You might get to the point where you want to issue a comment about something I say, whatever. Please do that. I love the interaction with the viewers. Love knowing what people are thinking. You know, what you might do differently if you were me here. You know, I'm not claiming that I absolutely know the best way to do everything. I just feel I know the best way I've determined to do everything, but I've certainly learned a lot of the stuff I do from others by either observing what they were doing when I was a contractor, or, you know, certainly some of it has been just trying things out on my own, but You know, and in the end, I do realize there's probably a lot of things that are just, well, you know, you can do them 10 different ways and they're all equally effective. So yeah, we can see, I don't know that I've really noticed, but yeah, that's field 8. That's the other main FM that works the grass, but they're again the one that's really waiting to have fields for sale, because right now all they have is working that grass field. So they can come in every few days, move some grass, then sell the silage every once in a while. That's all they've got going on here. It's pretty dull. You know, as I said, like, if that's all I was doing was generational farming and that's all I was doing, I certainly wouldn't be having as much fun on the FSN servers as I am, because I have this farm to do other things, and vice versa. Like, I get my fill of grass on the other end, which then means I don't have a huge appetite for grass here sometimes, because I'm just grassed out a little bit. So, you know, like at some point I got to go back and finish the grass work that I started on generational farming earlier today, but I wanted to pop over here and get the server synced. And then once I was in and realized I need to plant, again, I know myself enough of kind of the poor habits I've gotten into lately, is I try to juggle those and kind of, I don't know that I'd call it time manage it, but slot it differently and say, well, I'm going to go back and finish what I need, and then invariably I then don't come back here. So my focus was more like, I need to plant canola based on what I understand with the calendar, and you know, I had that discussion in the other episode when I planted the canola, of some questions I've got with server time that hopefully I have correct and are not what I'm seeing in other areas, but we'll see how that goes. But no, so at this point I would almost think, because we had like 416,000 liters of milk, so given that there's like an 80,000 liter gap, like the dairy should be empty before I'm done with full loads. Like, I'm not going to run a load of 20,000 liters over to the sell point. I'm not that in need of money, obviously. I'm coming up on $3 million here, and I will have $3 million before I'm done selling the milk. So it's not a question of needing the funds, it's just a question of getting the most for what I've got to sell off the farm. But given I was already at like 213 and I still had 290 or whatever it was, like, the dairy will empty, and then I just need to kind of pay attention. I assume it'll start to fill up again, but if not, I may need to move some milk over. You know, I'm just not sure exactly how this all interacts together. I certainly didn't intentionally place that milk extension thinking it was going to do anything with my dairy. That was a surprise. I mean, it's a pleasant surprise. It actually could help things a little bit if the capacity was higher for the dairy, but you know, it's not. But other than, like, if I had the cows stop producing and didn't sell milk, that's really the only thing that matters. So to some degree, it's kind of a moot point right now, because the dairy doesn't consume anywhere near what the cows put out, which is all fine. I suppose I could put multiple dairies up, but that just means multiple forklift jobs, so I'm not going to do that. Because this is fine. I mean, you know, making 700 per thousand, it's better than most of my crops per 1,000 liters. It's just, again, the question of how long does it really take me to produce 1,000 liters of milk. And that's the part I haven't modeled out and paid attention to. But I probably want to do that now that I see it, probably in my next load, because given that it's like a 10-minute cycle, I think what's going to happen here is oh boy, not again. This thing just drifts around. It just will not stay straight on the road. But yeah, I'm thinking it's going to hit 9 o'clock at some point during my next transition. Could be wrong. But what I probably want to do is keep an eye on what the level is at when I take the next load out, and then I'll be able to see what it added in. But I certainly can get back again. I'm wondering, maybe I won't hit 3 million. It'll be close. Because I think I still have 150,000 to go. I don't think I'm down that low. So I'd have 3 more, which would be about 100,000 on its own. Obviously, I'm doing more than that. A little bit. I'm doing like 110,000 or so. 110, 115,000 for 3 loads, so. But this is a little bit similar to how, like, in generational farming, I determined, like, grass is what I need to work on. Because eventually you figure out, well, I can make this amount, but just doing stuff to keep a dairy operation going, not quite sure that I want to head 100% that way yet. I do enjoy harvesting some crops like I am now. You know, and again, the field does exist to some degree to supply the dairy operation. That's where I get my straw. That was my blocker for the longest time, was the fact that I didn't have a field to get straw off of that I kept wrestling with, because it took a long time when auctions were running to even have a field come up, the one I wanted for crops. But very much a simulation of, you know, it's kind of real estate simulator here, where, like, our local church, for example, is looking to expand in its area where it's at. The only way we can do that is to buy up the houses that surround the church, and they've been doing that for decades, but we're still not there. And so, you know, it's kind of the long game. Like, we don't need that right now, but, you know, looking ahead, that was what the congregation decided to do, was, well, we're going to need to expand. And we're definitely at the point now where we do need to expand. We're definitely overflowing, which is a great problem to have as a church, but, okay. Keep hitting the button, and I keep, I guess, not being at the trigger point. But yeah, once we empty this, we'll kind of notate where we're at. I'm assuming I'm going to be in the 100,000s, because I think by the time I get back again, it's going to have rolled over. Alright, so we're at 165,682. And it's probably going to hit 856 any time now. And like I said, then we got to go there and get back. You know, maybe we'll be right there. Depending how close we are, I may wait. Because what I don't want to be doing is filling the tanker and then suddenly have it change over while I'm drawing milk out, because then I won't be able to see the clean version of what I'm trying to see, which is how much milk gets added every hour, because then I will talk about the math, but I'll do the actual math later, you know, or I'll take a break and do it and just pop in, you know, and obviously cut the time in between as I'm figuring it out and just tell you. But then we can know the answer, because I know now that I've been running crops or generating crops on my property here for several years. I know what my output on that field is, and as I said, it's under $100,000 a year. But, you know, it's between that 70 to 100,000 range, depending on what I plant and what has to go into it and so forth on a given year. And then I would be able to compare that to if I keep the barn running at capacity, what would that look like over the course of a year as well. And that should be somewhat easy enough. You know, it's going to be easier to do the mental math, obviously, if it's, say, 2,000 liters or 3,000 liters. Like, if it's a rounder number like that versus 3,500, where, I mean, again, it's not impossible math. It's just, while I'm trying to drive, not jackknife the truck, doing other things, could be a little more challenging. But, you know, you can see here we're at 857. When we pull away, we'll see where we're at, but you know, it takes well over a minute to get down the road here, I think. And so, as I said, if I get to 858, which I certainly will before I get back, well, there we go. I'm already there now. So, just making sure that it's not adding anything in by the minute, which some productions do, but it does not. So it's still the same number I wrote down, whatever it was, 4 or 5 minutes ago. And if it doesn't hit 9 a.m. before I get there, it's going to be at 8:59, and I will wait. Because, as I said, I want to get that data point, and then I'll know. And we'll be able to go from there. But yeah, the last episode, this episode, I've kept them kind of as full footage, just so you can see what's going on. I haven't done that in a while. I used to run a lot longer episodes. I don't know that I would say people enjoyed it more one way or the other, because nobody's really commented and said, no, it's better if you cut it down and keep them at half an hour. So I figured at least it works today. I'm able to do it. I'm babbling on. If people want to sit and enjoy and watch how this goes in real time, they can. You know, it'd be kind of as if I was live streaming, I suppose. This is what you'd see. You wouldn't see cuts and so forth. You know, even the cuts that I do have in here to clean things up a bit, to just keep it from being horrendous, where I did have to step away for a minute or two to do something or whatever, where nothing is going on and you're just staring at something on a screen and no one's talking and nothing's moving. But there we go, 8:59. We'll likely be at 9 by the time we get there. There we go. So, and we won't be at 9:01, so I'll be able to take a look. But once again, I've got 3 more trips, so I still have 150,000, so we're definitely going to hit the 3 million mark. Alright, so it was 165,682. It's 166,694. So that's what? 1,012? Is that right? I think it is. So it's 1,012 liters an hour. So that's basically, I mean, it's 24,000 liters a day. So that means it takes roughly, 2 days to get a full load, a full trailer. So to get the 8 will take 16 days, but that's a year and a third to get the 400,000 liters we're talking about, right? Am I doing that right? Yeah. Because it's 50,000 liters is 2 days. And so 16. So that gives that to me. And once again, we're talking about with these 8 loads, we're at 37,000, so we're at 240 plus 56, so we're at $296,000 You know, and it might really be 300 by, you know, once we add every dollar up, because the bonus is like 1,300, and, you know, that gets me to the 37,000, but has a little bit more. So across 8 loads, you know, I'd need another $500 per load, so that's entirely possible. But right now I'm getting 300,000 off of that in a year and a third, where that would normally take me the better part of 3 years plus, probably, to make the same profit in crop only. And once again, if this was a profit series, like, it would be like, yeah, it just makes sense to just do kind of almost nothing but milk. You know, and that doesn't take into account, of course, some of that milk is being consumed by the dairy, but we know, once again, we're turning that into cheese, which sells for a lot more per 1,000 liters. And I'm getting, you know, I think 666 liters of cheese, because it's like 3-2 off of that milk. So as long as it's kind of 1.5 times more for the cheese, which it normally is, it's like 1,400 to 1,600, so it's almost double. So cheese is more profitable than milk, so we've kind of done the mental math. Doesn't give us the full amount and total detail or accuracy, but enough to know if I was doing profit only, like, I should just be focusing on the dairy and nothing else, which I suppose is why a lot of folks that I contracted for, like, that's what they did. They would have 6 cow barns or something, and they just basically spent their days, you know, at that point we didn't have the automatic barns, or at least the farms I helped didn't have automated barns if they existed in FS19. In FSN, I mean, I think they existed, but the barns they had, we had to go and move the TMR into it, so that was like almost a daily job. And there were 3 or 4 farm hands that he had that we worked on that farm, and basically every day we'd get in and there were just daily things to do, which was basically fill the TMR mixers, move TMR into the barns, top off the barns, make sure there was water in the barns. We had to do that too. You know, and that could take some time when you had 6 barns that I think were running 300 head, 200, 300 head of cattle, because I think he had over 1,000 head, but I don't remember exactly how many he had. You know, and it might have been 250 per barn, I don't know, but it was a busy operation, and there wasn't much else he did. I mean, there were the crop fields. He would sometimes plant other things, but for the most part, he was generating things for the TMR mixer. And to do that, I mean, he'd have some crop to sell, but it wouldn't be anything that he was really focused on. It was still the primary driver, and the primary profit engine for him was the cows. You know, but the TMR mixers we had, which were awesome, I did like them, and I would absolutely use them if we had them available in FS22. But right now, like, the only thing they have is this little building you can do, and it doesn't generate a lot of TMR. Wow, it just takes a lot longer to go where I need to. So let's see, down to 111, 106,000 in the barn, and the dairy is almost empty. Now it's not going down, so that's interesting. So at a minimum, I guess it's gonna keep the 11,000. So I'm not sure how that works out, how it knows what to do there, or how it's deciding to do that. But I think I have this one, and then one more, and then I will be done with my milk movement. But, you know, this is the kind of stuff that having made a lot of money allows me to do, because setting up the dairy operation, I mean, let's be frank, it was not inexpensive. The barn itself was almost $1 million. And so even though, great, I'm making $300,000 here, like I need 3 of these just to pay for the barn, and that doesn't include the cows, and then obviously I have the fermenting silo, I have all the other stuff that plays into it. So the supply chain, you know, with the equipment and everything else, it's millions and millions of dollars to have a cow operation. So it's challenging to, you can't really start that way, but you can then see why people move to it and do that as their main source of income, especially if you enjoy that part of it. Now, the biggest challenge I know on that farm, I was contracting on, like, they would generate silage in the bunker silos, so we would move a ton of grass into these giant bunker silos that I swear held many millions. I want to say we had, because he then also had, like, haylofts, little hayloft buildings, and there were a dozen or more of those that then we'd have to fill just to keep things processing and running. But I'm sure from his design of it, I'm sure it was a fun exercise to just figure out like what level he wanted to be at, what would be sustainable with the help he could find, and so forth. Because there's definitely a lot of folks in FSN that's more what they enjoy. It's less the doing the actual work. They just hire a bunch of contractors and kind of run the farming empire. And, you know, I see some value in that. I mean, that could be entertaining. And you could just kind of do your farming in single player with whatever mods you wanted and do whatever, and just have contractors work here. The biggest challenge, I think, is most people join FSN with the desire to play, and play and own their own property and so forth. So you don't have folks who kind of come in, at least we've not seen that I've seen, that come in with the intent of like they just don't want to own anything, they just want to work on a farm the whole time. And so getting enough people, because I mean there were folks that, you know, I think they still may run operations like that had 2,000-3,000 acres across multiple servers, and you know they're running that mainly with contractors. I mean, they, you know, and they'll work on some things, but obviously they can't get it all done themselves on real-time servers. And I just don't know that would work now, because we seem to have gotten to the point where we have a lot less contractors that reliably work for any length of time. Like, you're constantly having to grab the new people that are coming in, but then the challenge becomes there's this handful of people that have these mega farming operations that advertise a lot on the channels and so forth, and people are just excited to go work for this giant thing because they have so many options. Because that is the nice thing when I did work with them as a contractor here and there. There's usually something somewhere on one of the servers that they were on that needed to be done. So there were constant contracts out there all the time. And the other difference was there was a lot of variety. Alright, so let's see. Yes, so this is the last load. This will be the full tank, and then we'll have a little bit left. But yeah, the dairy's not dropping below 11. Now I assume if I was to get below that, where right now I'm not, you can see we're at 16,668. I'm like half tempted to do that, because I assume if I pull below that, it's gonna keep sucking from the dairy. Now I'm half intrigued. So I do have another job yet. I have to top off mainly the silage in there. I'll probably obviously top off everything because it's just going to be a load or two for everything else. But the silage is, I think, below 100,000 or right there, and so I can get 6 or 7 loads over. I guess it's, well, it's not even 6 because it's 347,000. It's a 60,000 liter trailer. I was more thinking I've got 300,000 liters to move over, but no, it's like 225 maybe. So it's really, I guess, probably four crampy trailers of silage we'll get over there, and then that will top that off pretty well. But that's the work that's left after this, because I could basically pull some stuff out into the tanker and just see, because I really just need to get 5,000-6,000, and then at least it's in the tanker. And the biggest thing would be, do I need that, do I need that milk or something later? I don't know. It's probably better maybe if I keep an eye on it, given that it's not filling that fast. Maybe when I'm close enough to have another full load, and say I'm between 50 and 60,000, that would work. That then I just do it, because otherwise I can't use this to move slurry around, or I have to find a way to empty it of milk. So I'm either taking this run to move 10,000 liters of milk, or trying to put it back in the silo or something. So I don't know. I won't do that because, like I said, I've got the other task to do, and I need to do that so that I can be done with the work I have here. But the first time, other than when I moved in, that I've crossed myself over $3 million here. So in the past, I would have then moved some of this over to the FSN website to then perhaps do things on the Entrepreneurs site and so forth, but I then can't get money back from Entrepreneurs into FSN, because that was a way that I helped fund things, is you would run crops through the resource exchange, and we can still do that, but then that money stays over in Entrepreneurs. We're no longer allowed to move it back here. And to some degree, I think that was the source of, I don't know that it could be called anything but a feud, where some other multiplayer community had whined to Giants that FSN was kind of offering things and incentives that they couldn't do, and Giants kind of sent a cease and desist order to our group, the leadership of our group, like, hey, if you guys want to stay Giants partners, or whatever the relationship was, if they didn't want to risk that, and potentially, I guess, Giants might just do a legal suit against them because they felt somehow it was a breach of the contract of the game or whatever, but they weren't making any profit off it, but people, you'd have to defend against someone saying, well, you're collecting money to run servers, and then you're offering these incentives for people, and they're able to make this artificial thing, and like, we can't compete with that because we don't have that kind of setup, blah blah blah. And to some degree, I think that's where some of those complaints happened then, where it was just felt like those abilities were unfair for some reason. I think it was a lot of whining over nothing, and just, you know, they didn't understand how FSN had, you know, hundreds of servers and a good amount of people active across things, and they just felt it was because they were cheating, and so because they themselves couldn't reproduce the model or generate enough interest, so they kind of went and whined to mom and dad and said, you know, hey, Tommy's not playing nice with me. And sadly, mom and dad listened and said, Tommy, we're gonna slap you if you don't get in line. So again, I'll leave it at that. It's been a long time. It might even be a year at this point, but you know, at the time, I know leadership was just not even comfortable sharing what was going on and what the exact allegations were of what was happening, because they were just in fear of even sharing might somehow get them in further jeopardy or something. So it's just unfortunate that things were like that. But yeah, we're going to move 3 loads from here for sure. I know that. Now again, this takes forever to fill, so just be prepared. This is not a fast process. But I'll try to think of some other thing, whether it's farming simulator related or not, just to talk about, so you've got something to listen to other than trucks and tractors and whatever. Yeah, I guess the thing would be just kind of the future steps. Got to be on sometime in April, or, well, sometime before harvest to spray for weeds. But I will tend to do that the next month because right now I don't have thin tires, narrow tires on my tractor. Can't do it on the quad track, but I think I can on the other, I think it's a class tractor. I don't even know what kind of tractor I have anymore. But therefore, if it goes beyond the next stage, then I would destroy crop, which obviously I don't want to be doing. And, you know, that's kind of where things are at with that. But that'll be the next focus, and then obviously just the ongoing dairy operation stuff, which for the most part, you know, that's kind of what we were doing here to some degree. I mean, we're moving cheese, which came from the dairy. We're moving milk, which clearly came from the dairy. And now we're kind of putting in the inputs that go into our production line, which is the cows. And so kind of fuel them up and let them keep producing milk. So yeah, the one thing, I guess I'm a little surprised that we're only getting 1,000 liters an hour. It would seem that we would get more than that. But I suppose the argument is, like, I think straw and silage and all of that, you know, I think, again, if you sell silage, you're getting maybe a couple hundred liters. 1,000 would be high. It's usually in the upper 180, 190 is what I'm paying or getting paid in generational farming. And the difficulty level on servers is the same. We play at hard difficulty within Farming Simulator, so there's not free money floating around for sure. But then, like, straw, hay, I think those are like 30,000-40,000, and so that, you know, I think the point is you're taking 3,500 liters, because that's basically what goes in as feed every hour, and then getting 1,000 liters out. So, you know, you could argue that you could take those byproducts and you could sell them for, say, 300. Why am I going over here right now? I don't need to be doing that. I'm trying to get silage. just a little bit of automated, because I haven't taken silage over there in a while, so my muscle memory in my brain is like, yeah, go to the hayloft. And I do need to go there. I could have, I suppose, grabbed something and saved the time, but once again, then I'll like forget where I need to be or what I was doing. But I'm trying to think through that math in my head, because basically I could take that 3,000 liters of product and say I was making 300, because it almost doesn't seem like a fair trade, because if I can sell silage for, it's between 150 and 190, you know, again, it's not, you know, and I guess that's the thing, it's not 3,000 liters of silage. I'm kind of thinking, well, I'm getting 600 for the silage, and I'm getting, you know, 30 liters per thousand for something else, so I'm getting 90 for that. But once again, you're just using a total of 3,500 liters, and I think it's 1,300 liters of silage, so that would basically mean $250 to $300 of silage. And then, you know, the hay, once again, I suppose, just to make this a true mature simmer analysis, because obviously I'd want nothing less. Let's look at what information we have. So hay sells between 50 and 62 a liter. So hay, I think, gets consumed at the same rate as the silage. So we're going to get, say, 75, just to be really conservative. It's not quite going to be that much, because it's 1,300, not 1,500. But you add that to the 300, so you're at, say, 375. And then you've got straw. And straw is between 32 and 48, so say 40. Oops. I guess I went too far again. I thought it was pouring out, and it's not. Alright, so you could say 50, another $50, so, what was it? 300 plus 75, 375, 54, so it's $425 if I sold the raw ingredients that get consumed every hour, and that again is, once the barn is full, it's only using 3,500 liters. And at any point, that's what it's really doing. It's just if the barn isn't full, it puts 1,000 liters of the 4,500 that it moves into kind of food surplus, so that that barn has the 176,500. I was almost headed to the hayloft again. I was looking at it, getting ready to turn. I'm like, no, you fool. You're going to the fermenting silo. So the nice thing is now the fermenting silo is going to start working again. And so that will be good stuff. So we'll take this over, and then I will do a checkup on the barn. See where we're at. We should be in, I think I could stop if I wanted, because again, I was about 100,000 liters with everything when we took a look at it the first time. But yeah, it'd be $425 of supply that's going in there, and I'm selling that milk, the 1,000 liters of milk that I get out every hour, for that same amount, for not quite double that. You know, it was low 700s, but it's for a decent profit. So at least modeled, you know, when they sized things and when they worked out the economics of it, it makes sense. I mean, it's a realistic thing. You know, you're not gonna always make a killer amount. You know, in that case, we somewhat are. We're making probably well over 50% profit, because 50% would get us to, say, 650, and we're more than that. We're 700. So I think most businesses would kill if they had a 50% profit margin. So now you start to understand why dairy works out as well as it does. And one would make the argument that's why you put this work in, to keep it going, because it's got a 50-60%, maybe even up to 70% profit margin. So you're not going to get that any other way. Now, once again, I suppose now that I say that, it's not actually true, because, I'm putting, again, $30,000 into the field, and then I'm getting, $100,000 in profit off that field, so it's almost like 300%. Alright, so slurry, well, I can go grab another thing of slurry for sure. I'm only gonna be in the 200s, and again, I can go to 347, so yeah, it's done. So we're gonna get one more load. That'll put us into the 300s. That's kind of what I figured, is that I would be able to fill 2, but my concern was, because again, it's 347, and I knew I was right around 100, so it's like, well, that's 4 loads is 240,000. Am I going to have space if I have 100,000 in there, or am I going to have a trailer that then is full? But yeah, definitely lots of good news with how this is working out. But hopefully, the last episode and this one, if you're new to the series, certainly you can watch them, get a little bit of a semblance of how long things take, because that's kind of what these 2 episodes should certainly give you a flavor of if you're running this operation, this is what it takes in Farming Simulator to do it. The kind of the unvarnished view, as opposed to other times you're seeing time change on the screen, you're doing whatever. I've told you, hey, I've stepped away for some time, so like you just don't really know how long something took. But since I was able to give you a straight stretch here, I figured I would do that. And then, I probably won't do that going forward, because I think I babbled about a lot of useless stuff to fill the time, just so you had something to listen to, and hopefully it was slightly interesting and slightly entertaining. But, there's definitely a lot of work involved, or a lot of time involved in playing this simulator. And it's no different with any of them, any of the ones I really focus on. That's part of what I like. They're pretty immersive. They keep you occupied. The nice thing with this is I wouldn't say it's mindless. Obviously, I'm thinking about things. I've been just sharing a bunch of analysis on and off, but it's not like a constant thing. This isn't like something that you need to devote massive amounts of mental energy to, where, once again, I think like someone, who was doing a really good job of playing, say, a first-person shooter, you'd have a hard time keeping running commentary up, I would argue, and being at the top level of someone who's doing that work, where, to some degree, I would like to think I optimize things really well, and, alright, I don't understand. I guess I was right on the trigger. I'm like, I know I'm not full, so why is it not taking it? And it tells me I'm there. Alright, so 105. I guess that the hay is really the piece. So let me go grab a thing of hay, because once again, I should be able to get most of that. The challenge is, once again, everything's 147,000 liters. So that's the one thing I don't like of how this cow barn is modeled, is I can put 347,000 liters of silage in there, but then I have hay, which consumes at the same pace, but I have less than half the capacity to store there. So I'm just kind of having to be a lot more on my toes with that, because again, it's pulling about 1,400 liters an hour. So, you know, you're talking about 28,000, you know, 31,000 liters of, 31,000 liters a day that's coming off. So, I mean, I can go like 4 days without filling hay, so it's not the end of the world, but I have to deal with it a lot more often than I deal with silage. So it just becomes, you know, and that's honestly what I've been struggling with a little bit, is, you know, keeping this full, because where this differs from, say, the cow operation I was contracting with is, like I said, the TMR mixers were separate. So yes, we'd have to deal with that, but then when you were doing the cow barn, you were just moving TMR over in loads, and like that was the full amount of feed. You weren't combining the two things, and I don't know that it was any less complex than what I'm dealing with here, but right now it feels like it, but maybe not, because I'd just be doing this at the TMR level. Like, there's enough straw, and straw consumes at a slower pace. I don't think we're going to be able to dump all this hay in. Yep, so we still have 8,000, so go ahead and turn that off. So obviously the hydraulics are working away as this lowers down, and then we'll get that to close up and we're all set. But at this point, that's that next set of work. So it took me, what, a good hour and a half? I think that's what we would have been here. I think I started, maybe it was like an hour. Or no, because I started loading the cheese at like 8:08. So yeah, so this is a long episode. I'm probably very little I'll take out of it. I'll just kind of leave things going, and the only thing I'd cut would be things that really shouldn't be there, if I even find them. You may find things that I didn't mean to leave in that I leave in. I don't know. Because an hour and a half video, frankly, is a lot of footage to go through and clean up if there's not something you specifically jot down and note. And for the most part, the intent of this episode was to just let it be kind of a stream of consciousness, and almost like a version of watching this live stream and see what the play is like. The only difference with the live stream is I'd have folks hopefully watching and commenting. When I've tried that, when I hit 100 subscribers, I did do the one live stream I did. Part of the problem is I'm not really set up for it, so to get a live stream set up, I have to move monitors around. I have to do quite a bit of juggling. So it takes some time, and that's the thing. Like, if people start asking for it, I might seriously consider doing it, but it's not as if people had said, you know, I love your stuff, but I'm not interested in subscribing or coming to your channel regularly because you don't do live streams. That's what I want to see. If I start having a bunch of comments like that, I will certainly revisit it. But otherwise, you know, I was like half tempted to say, hey, if I hit 1,000 subscribers, I'll do another live stream, but I don't know that it would matter at that level. I'm almost like saying the stake in the ground probably is like 5,000 subscribers. Certainly if I get to that level, I would be willing to go through the effort to do another live stream to kind of celebrate hitting that milestone. So there you go. You know, I know channels throw that out there. Hey, if I get to whatever, and I watch a political commentator that just hit 2 million subscribers, and, you know, he committed to, if he hits 3 million subscribers, he's going to answer the question of, does he wear pants in his videos? That's all they're getting for another 1 million subscribers. Like, you get a live stream if we just get 4,200 more people to subscribe here. It's like such a lower bar for a way more exciting reward. Like, who cares if the guy wears pants in the video? It's not like he's going to jump up and down and show you that he does or doesn't. He's just going to answer the question, and maybe he'd do something funny with it. But again, it's a political commentary, so I don't think so. But yeah, I mean, the logistics of it, to just do it if I get a couple hundred more, even though it has been a long time coming, if I hit 1,000, because at this point I think the channel's coming up on a couple years old in the next few months, and I still haven't hit that 1,000 subscriber mark. So, you know, but unless this thing takes off, because what I found is when I did the one with 100, I had one person on who was watching, and so we chatted a bit, but not much. I mean, you know, they asked me some questions. It was simple, but it was not nearly as fun for me or them as if we had had a group of people there. You know, because I think a couple other people popped in and hung around for 5 minutes and then left. But I think having 1,000 people, like, there isn't going to be enough. We'd have 10 people maybe. I mean, if I just multiply it, I had 1 at 100. You know, we might have 10 with a channel that has 1,000 subscribers. Whereas I think if we set it as a target of 5,000, you know, we might have a real group there. You know, 20, 30, 40 people might show up if I have 5,000 subscribers. So that's the commitment I'll throw out, and I'm pretty comfortable sticking with that, because you know, I've done it once. I know what's involved. But it probably is like 2 hours of setup just to get it ready and tested and make sure everything's working, and then obviously doing, you know, having the time to do the live stream. And it would probably, you know, again, let me not get ahead of myself. I'm like trying to figure out like when it might be. Would it be on a weekend, weekday? Who knows what'll happen if and when we hit 5,000 subscribers and what my life will be like at that point. So we'll worry about that when we get closer. But in any event, the whole point of that was this was like a recorded live stream, like you're watching it later. You just don't have people giving me something to talk about, because that's the benefit of a live stream, is I'm not really talking about what I'm doing in the game. I'm just answering questions, and people are asking, hey, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? They may just be commenting in general, and then we start talking about some other topic, whatever it is. So, but thanks for sticking around. I'll likely go back probably to similar formats of what I've had, where I'll just show you pieces of the work, you know, maybe do time lapses here and there. Once again, like, I'm not getting any feedback. So if you want something, if you like a certain thing that I've done in other videos, or you want to see a certain format, you want to see more time lapse, you want to see jump cuts, you want to see montages, tell me. Right now I'm just kind of doing stuff and just hoping that at least people come and watch. But other than that, like, if I don't have any comments, I can't read people's minds. I do not have that talent. So, but anyway, typical end video babbling that I always do, staring in this corner of my farm, because that seems to be where I always end. But we're done. It's cloudy, and I'll see you next time.